Meet the Bolds, yes, meet the Bolds. Come on, meet the Bolds. You know you want to.
Welcome to the Bold Hour, as promised. I'm going to read a chapter a day of The Bolds Go Wild, which is available now, wouldn't you know it? So shall we begin? Are you sitting comfortably? The Bolds Go Wild, Chapter 1. Some people think that everything happens for a reason. Well, this makes perfect sense to me, although sometimes it can take a while for the reason to become clear. You just have to be patient, that's all. Why did I lose a shoe on the way to school? It was certainly very annoying. My foot got wet and my mother was cross with me. But, you see, losing the shoe meant I was late for class and so I missed a maths exam. Result. It happened for a reason. And I once told my best friend that I still slept with a teddy bear called Mr. Pilchard. My friend told the whole class and they all laughed at me. But then I realised the reason for all this upset. It was time to dump my best friend and get myself one who could be trusted. So I did. Now what about things that happen to the Bolds? Perhaps you are new to stories about them. I hope not, because that would mean you'd missed out on lots of fun. The Bolds, you see, are a family that strange things happen to. Some things good, some things not so good, but always for a reason. The good things are wonderful, and the not so good always make the stories about them very interesting, though I say so myself. Our story this time begins on a rainy day. Most people on days like that want to stay indoors and avoid getting wet. This isn't the case with the Bolds, though. Goodness me, no. They love the rain. Rain means puddles and mud, both of which they're very, very keen on. Stamping in puddles and making a mess, getting mud in their fur, down their trousers, or anywhere else you can think of is their idea of fun. This is probably because the Bolds family, as you may already know, aren't actually people. No, they are hyenas. Hyenas living disguised as human beings in a lovely little house in Teddington. In order to keep this unusual fact a secret, they are careful not to do anything too hyena-ish in public. No running around on all fours, no chasing things and eating them, and certainly no rubbing their bottoms on bushes. But laughing wildly and messing about in the rain and mud are hyena traits that they can get away with, you see, and they do. People might think them a little odd, but those same people never jump to the conclusion that the family running around and laughing in the rain are hyenas. And for the Bolds, it is a little taste of their old life. It satisfies their hyena instincts, so carefully covered up most of the time. So, on this particular day in early April, during a heavy shower, the Bold family, Mr. and Mrs. Bold and their twins, Bobby and Betty, spent a glorious couple of hours in a rather wet bushy park. They took with them their fellow hyena, Uncle Tony, and Miranda, the marmoset monkey, as well as their next-door neighbour, Mr. McNumpty, who is a grizzly bear, not a hyena, but rather partial to a frolic in the mud, nevertheless. To begin with, they just hopped over puddles, laughing and shrieking, but then Bobby landed in a large one, perhaps by mistake, perhaps not, and splashed water all over Betty's skirt. Right. Game on, said a laughing Betty, before jumping in the air and landing with a splat right in the middle of an even larger, ominously dark puddle. It turned out this puddle was much deeper than expected. Betty suddenly found herself knee-deep in filthy, muddy water, and not only was Bobby drenched from head to foot in thick, gravy-like mud, but Mrs. Bold was too, as she happened to have been walking just behind Bobby. Now, I don't know about your family, but in mine, Betty and Bobby would be in big trouble by now. However, things are a little different with the Bolds. Eek, said Betty, covering her mouth with her paws in surprise. You've had it now, laughed Bobby, jumping in beside his sister, creating a new wave that curled right up and engulfed a squealing Betty's neck. Mrs. Bold, meanwhile, simply inhaled the earthy scent, and her nostrils twitched with delight. She gave Mr. Bold a sly glance. She said, "This so reminds me of life in Africa during the rainy season. Have a sniff, Fred." She scooped up a handful of mud and rubbed it over Mr. Bold's face. "Oh," said her husband, "I know what you mean, Amelia." "We'd better stop," said Mrs. Bold breathlessly, "before we're seen. Please, Bobby, don't do that in the ferns. It's not at all human-like." Exhausted but exhilarated and very, very happy, hyena happy, they made their way home to 41 Fairfield Road. "Right," said Mr. Bold with a sigh when they were safely inside the door. "We'd better all get changed into some clean, dry clothes." There was a bit of a queue for the bathroom, but a couple of hours later, everyone was clean and dry and sitting in the lounge, enjoying hot buttered crumpets, slices of fruit cake, and milky tea. The twins' best friend Minnie, the only human who knew the Bold secret, had come round. But being a human, she wasn't so keen on wet weather and couldn't understand why her friends had got themselves so muddy like that. "What goes up when rain comes down?" Mr. Bold asked her. "I know the answer to that," said Minnie. "An umbrella." "Yes," said Mr. Bold, "although we don't own one in this house. Can't think of anything more silly than avoiding the rain. In the Serengeti, it only ever rains in the rainy season, so when it does, we animals get very excited. We all get as wet as possible. I remember my mother teaching me and my brothers and sisters how to roll around in the mud. It's good for our skin and keeps mosquitoes away." Mr. Bold stared into the distance. "Ah, yes," he said. "Happy days." But his thoughts of home were suddenly interrupted by an urgent tapping sound. "What's that?" asked Bobby. "It's coming from the window," declared Mrs. Bold, pulling back the net curtains to get a closer look. There, on the other side of the window, sat a fairly large, sleek grey bird, his beady eyes staring in through the glass. He gave 3 quick, impatient taps with his small beak and then sat there expectantly. "He wants to come in out of the rain," said Mrs. Bold. "All right, Mr. Bird. One moment." She opened the window and let him in. Well, there's a cliffhanger. I'm going to leave it there for today, and I will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place, different shirt. I thank you.